Word.
Hi, Court.
Hi, Annie.
Nice to see you always. See your beautiful face.
Aw, likewise. So great to be back together. I feel like it's been a minute.
It has. It has been a hot minute. So we were talking about how we've had a lot of guests over the past, several weeks, and we thought maybe we would do a show just me and you today and talk about some things that have affected us in our lives. And one of the words that came up for us was transition.
Yeah.
Transition meaning change, and how I've done it in ways that are not smooth, and a lot of people have. And maybe if you're looking to change some things in major ways in your life, how we can kind of talk about what to do and what not to do. I happen to think that you're making some transitions in your life, and it's the right way versus the ways that I did them, which I don't always think were the right way. So I thought we'd talk about that today.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's something that is relatable to a lot of people, whether it's life transition, career transition,
Yep.
and so yeah, let's dive in.
Cool. So in as everybody knows, if they've heard me at all, in 2018, I left corporate and I went back to school at 40 to get my everyone will know my age, to get my executive MBA. And in doing so, I found out a lot about myself just being in this cohort. It was like going to war for 20 months. I made some best friends, but anyway, I learned so much about myself. It was probably the most, the best, deepest, most profound change I've ever made, meaning as a person evolving. And then on top of that, I was going to come out and be a management consultant, right? And like be traveling. And I had two little kids. And then I come out, I'm about to graduate. So it's March of 2020, in case anybody knows what happened beginning of March of 2020.
I
But the whole world was turned upside down with the pandemic. So COVID hit.
was gonna say,
Um,
what timing? I mean, talk
Yeah,
about
oh, right. I mean,
significant
literally,
timing.
like the same week. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, and then everything turned upside down. I graduated May of 2020, and I'd figure it out. I had two little kids.
Yeah.
I was a single mom, and I'm like, okay, well, what have I been doing the past couple years besides going to school and taking out loans to go to school? I've been basically coaching my cohort, right? A lot of my friends, and I've spent so much of my life giving advice and talking about life experiences. And so I decided to make the biggest transition of my life, which was completely leave corporate and start my own business.
Mhm.
And that was a big, like we were getting pandemic checks. We were like, I had to start a little business on the side, like using PayPal and getting like, you know, I don't know, $50 for a session or something like that. And just every dollar I could get to just stow away and start to pay off my loans and make this into something. And then as time progressed, which didn't take very long, I got on LinkedIn
Yeah.
and had like found my voice on LinkedIn. I just like, this was before anybody took selfies, which is what everybody does now. I was taking videos on my phone in the middle of the night, videoing myself at 3, 4 a.m. in the bathroom, like crying or happy, or I would go running in the morning, which I'm telling you, it's a while ago. Certainly don't run in the morning anymore. I'm work out
Hey,
in a different
you have a trainer you're working with. I know
Yeah,
you are
it's true,
crushing
but I'm not getting up running in the morning. If I'm running, it's from someone. So, I mean, running in the morning, walking, telling my thoughts, right? And then all of a sudden, I started to gain this audience and this followership,
it. Yeah.
and I started to talk about authenticity. And I realized that as I'm coaching on the side, like I needed to come up with some sort of framework, and that's where breath framework came in.
Mhm.
But long story short. Um, I started this framework. I started really getting some coaching clients, and people found me on LinkedIn that were, high level executives that were like, I love what you're doing. I had a
Yeah.
podcast, and I just got in with some good people, and then I proved myself. And, my coaching is very different in that I made it something that everybody, like, there's a million coaches, right? But like,
Yeah.
what is different about mine? Well, it's personal and professional development mesh,
Mhm.
right? So it's not just a life coach. It's not just an executive coach. It's like what I call an executive life coach, right? So it's
Right.
dealing with a lot of executives, but in a life coaching way. So it
Mhm.
makes people feel seen and makes them understand authenticity. So anyway, so long story short, starting my own business was really hard, and I totally did it wrong. Meaning, I didn't save money to do it. I put money in the wrong places. I should
Mhm.
have gotten a business coach from the start. Like I
Mhm.
really I just spent money like doing a website, doing, buying this, buying that, getting things trademarked. Like it was just so out of order
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like and granted, like you said before we got on here, like that was where I was at the time, and that
Right.
made sense for me at the time, and I did it on my own. Like I made it happen. It was just I probably could have done it in a better way, but hindsight's 2020, right?
And
So
and also, despite the circumstances, like when we're here now, looking back and being like, okay, I should have done it this way, or it would have been more skillful to do it that way. We were in the midst of a pandemic, so I
I
think
know.
everything was upside down. Like, despite whether or not you were starting a business, like just waking up in the morning, everything felt chaotic. So I
And
think
the
that,
kids were home, like doing classes at home. We were all masked. And, people that were younger that might be listening that really don't remember this, or maybe if they were, in other parts of their lives and it was a little bit easier, this was crazy.
yeah.
Like, I mean, doing everything from home. The kids at home was the biggest change for me. Like
Mhm.
doing these classes because my kids did not react well to online classes. It was really, really hard. And anyway, this is the best part of the whole thing. I started my business on Zoom, and my whole entire business has grown on Zoom. I've met clients, but I don't see anybody in person. And that was unheard of. Like
Right.
people didn't have businesses on Zoom when they were seeing people. They'd meet in person, and they,
Right.
would travel to see them. And like all of my meetings, for the most part, unless I go out and visit a client now, which is different. We're not masked and in a pandemic, but all of my one-to-one coaching, group coaching, everything that I've done is all on Zoom. So I
Mhm.
was able to transition in that way pretty easily because that was the new thing. Everyone was home. It wasn't as formal.
Right.
Like there were cats in the background and kids coming in during meetings. Like you would never have that like
And
5 years
we're
ago.
in like sweats and a t-shirt and hair
Right.
on,
I,
like,
like, but that's the thing, Gord. You make a good point. That's still how I dress. And
yeah.
people are like, you're a professional coach. Like, they don't say that, but I'm thinking like, why am I not like? And I feel like when I dress like me, when I wear athleisure or whatever, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying I never get dressed up, but it helps people sort of calm. Talk about mindfulness, right? Like to be
Yeah.
with me in that. And I feel like if I'm all buttoned up, it's not the same vibe. Whereas if I'm dressed like me as a mom, as a person that has their own business, as working from home,
Yeah.
comfortable, they can be more comfortable.
Yeah, you're more yourself, you're truer to yourself, you feel more authentic, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's a certain realness. It's not like you have to fluff things up. I mean, I guess there's a place to wear a suit and whatnot,
Well, sure,
but
sure. And I'm pitching a big corporation. That's different. I'm not going to wear
yeah,
this, right? But if I'm sitting with you and having one-to-one coaching, that
yeah,
was a big transition too, because we would go to work and, as an attorney, like we would be dressed up every day. We'd be in at least business casual at the
yeah,
very least.
yeah,
So like that was a big transition too, which was a good one.
yeah,
But then, everything from starting a business from self insurance, health insurance to, taxes, everything changed,
yeah.
and so I really had to adjust in that way and figure out people to help me, right? The right attorney, the right, um, you know, eh, eh, I mean, the right accountant, the right people, attorneys looking at my paperwork, like, making sure I was doing everything right. Because if you can really mess up, if you're audited, if you're not keeping your books, I didn't
And
do that.
as you're making the transition, the professional transition, and starting your own business, were you already through from the personal end of your life? Were you through the divorce? Like, were you on the other
Oh, yeah.
side?
2000 and my ex and I, my children's father and I have been apart now for over 10 years. So I was through that, but it was still like single momhood, like I'm doing it
Navigate
on
it.
my own
Yeah.
type thing. And it wasn't like, I didn't have any here's the other thing. I didn't have any capital. Like I didn't have an investor.
Mhm.
Like I didn't have I blew through my savings. Like I was really in a spot, and
Yeah.
I started, and it's always nice to hear when somebody's on the other end of like, and granted, I'm still paying school loans off. That'll be probably for the rest of my life. But like, I don't have a credit card debt. I don't have any of that stuff anymore. And like, but
Yeah.
I was there. I was there
Yeah.
living off credit cards and paying the minimums and all the things you're not supposed to do and
Right.
consolidating and all that stuff. But I had to do it now to do this. I had to. And like my kids saw me, my computer just went off, so there's less light. My kids saw me put myself through my MBA program, start my own business, be
Mhm.
able to work from home and pick them up, take them to school every day. Like that's what I want. That's why I'll never not work for myself, because no one's going to tell me my schedule. I will
Yeah.
always, of course, I only have a few years left of doing this, but I don't want to start crying. But taking them to school, making them breakfast, picking them up, like that's never going to be, of course, a one-off, but that's never going to be something that I'll ever give up again,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
and to each his own. I promise you, working moms, working dads out there that have to have help, I
Mhm.
get it. I
Mhm.
just got lucky in that way that I don't want to ever give that up. That's so
Flex
special to me. That time.
like flexibility to be with your family is a core value, is something that you prioritize time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I didn't even know how important it was until, they started to get a little bit bigger. And it's like that time in the car, anybody that's a parent, that time in the car, at least for my kids, like that's when they talk to me, like driving the cars, like, or 11 o'clock at night when I want to go to sleep, they want to talk then.
Yeah.
But I love that my kids got to see me do this, right?
Yeah.
Was I always calm? Was I always mindful? No, I could have used a little more Courtney in my life for sure. I'm
Oh,
not,
please.
yeah,
I I have my moments, but yeah,
everybody does. You're human,
yeah.
right? But I think I would have practiced more patience if I could, but I was so amped to just like, I had to make money to survive. I had to make this was make or break for me, right? Like I wasn't going to start this company and start coaching and then be like, throw in the towel and be like, I'm going to go get a corporate. Like it just
Right.
wouldn't work. So, and I was in pharma, so I always had like a company car, and I had to figure out a car. Like everything was like crazy. And then like the
Yeah.
pandemic just made it crazier. So, but the transition is what you and I are here to talk about. So, there's a part of it that was really comfortable. Like again, being with my kids and like taking them to school, like it became routine, which I like a structure like that.
Yeah.
And then there's a part of it that's like a really hard transition mentally, to my point before, like being okay with not going back to corporate, being okay with not having medical benefits that I
Yeah.
wasn't getting at Obamacare, or, Medicaid, not having it, a lot of money to put towards it, or it was different than working for a pharma company and having that sort of just easy,
Well,
right?
also, I think the uncertainty,
Oh
like
yeah,
to not know. I mean, there
the
really
unknown.
the world as a whole is just uncertain. The only moment we know for sure is this moment. But when you're pivoting in your professional career, and you know that each week, at least you have a good sense of like you have solid footing. You know, if I put in X hours, or if I show up, or if I do this, I'm going to have a paycheck that's going to be X, Y, or Z.
Exactly.
So
The ebb and flow is the ebb and flow, right? When you do this, there's not a lot of ebb and flow.
yeah, and
It's
so
not constant. Yeah.
I think that financial uncertainty, especially when given your situation as a single mom raising children, and young children who need your help financially, but they also need your presence, your
Yeah.
time. So it's like
Yep.
balancing, like I want to invest in my business. I want to devote time to help it grow and flourish, but I also want to be present for my children. So it's like finding that fine balance to juggle it all, and to have your kids thrive, but to also have your business,
Take
soar.
off, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah,
grow.
yeah,
And another thing I did was like, there was too much advice. Like everybody had an opinion. Like, no, you need to focus on this. Make sure you get a website. Like, make sure, and everybody just tap the brakes. Like, practice just breathing, and like it will happen. For me, I'm the type of person that like, I don't do everything right then, it's not going to happen. And
yeah,
that's just driven me in my life. That's what made me kind of good at sales, was I
yeah,
needed to, like, I was a shark, right?
right,
But sometimes it's better to just take a breath. But like you said, like the unknown was already in the business and my life, let alone the pandemic. So it was like a double whammy, right? Like it wasn't like the world was stable and I was doing this. It was
right,
like we didn't know when it was going
right,
to be over. Everybody was sick, and at that point, we didn't know how bad, like, were people dying. People were like dying,
yeah,
we didn't know
yeah,
when it was going to end.
right,
So I mean, and then at the end of like my MBA, which was such a big deal for me, and like I at the end of that, like, we weren't able to graduate together. It had to be on Zoom. We had this big, you work this whole 20-month program. I went to St. Joe's in Philly. You work this 20-month program to end up on this really awesome trip at the end.
Yeah.
And you do lots of business stuff on the trip, but it's like a last hurrah with your
Right.
with buddies, your war, partners. And that got all canceled.
Ah.
So like everybody else that had gone on, and they don't tell you where you're going till like toward the end of the.
I was gonna say, I was in my head, I'm wondering, where were you going? Like, where were
Yeah,
you?
well, you didn't know. You didn't
Yeah.
know. And like the people before us had gone to like China. The people before that had gone to like all kinds of places all over the world. So you're kind of thinking like, this is what I'm looking forward to, right? Well, it
Yeah.
happens in March. You're not gonna believe this. We were leaving 2 days later. Pandemic hit what, like March 6th-ish of
Yeah.
2020? Like
Yeah.
that week,
Down
we
there,
were
yeah.
leaving like the 10th. So they were like, maybe we can. I remember being like, I'm still going. Like, I'm going. I don't care about this COVID, whatever what are we
Right.
calling it? Coronavirus. The
Yeah.
corona. I don't care what this is. The kids' schools were shutting down. I'm like, I had them watched. We had tickets in our hand, basically, so to speak, like
Uh,
to go. And
yeah.
they canceled everything. And then everything that we were supposed to do there, we had like Zoom meeting. I mean, it was so lame. Like it totally, and then we couldn't graduate. We never graduated together. We there was a sign that crossed over on Zoom, like a sign that said like Annie Jennifer Lieb,
Oh.
like graduate. Yeah, it was like a picture of me. It was just awful. But I was in a do or die situation, Courtney. Like my transition was just, make or break. Like
Well, I know you, so the way we sort of broke into this segment is you said, these are the things I did wrong. And I
yeah,
hear you, but again, I'm going back to the circumstances and sort of the conditions that you had to work within or under. And so I see a lot of what you did right, obviously, because you're helping so many people. So I guess I have two questions, and these are for our audience to hear. Like, one, what what's the biggest, like, no you would say? Okay, if you're looking to transition from one career to another, what's the huge avoid? Don't go down that path. And then what's like your aha moment or something where you're like, okay, this totally worked. This helped me to pursue this path. So if you could
yeah.
listen.
Good questions. What was my big no-no?
Or danger
It,
zone.
it was kind of like a no-no that was kind of pushed on me, but I would take my time if I were to do it again. Like
Yeah,
there didn't need to be such a rush, but remember I was in such a rough situation with
yeah, yeah,
everything that hit at once. But like take your time, like do it slowly, be mindful. You don't have to do it all today. Just
right,
work on one client at a time and work on your methodology, work on your flow, talk to the right people. People always say, how did you do it? Like, so what I did was I started on LinkedIn, like I said, and I would put up posts like, the first 5 people that contact me get free coaching sessions. Like that's how I built my business. Like I
right.
can't imagine doing that now because
Yeah,
like I'm just not in that space, but I'm so glad I met so many good people that
yeah,
put me in touch with more people. Like, here's one thing. Don't think that every conversation is like if it doesn't get you a job or doesn't get you what you want, it's a waste.
yeah,
Like I built an audience and friendships and like real relationships from just getting on Zoom with people.
yeah,
Zoom after Zoom. I mean, my schedule was, and then some turned into clients and some couldn't afford it. And then one person was like, Annie, you're not charging enough. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I just basically started this. And he was like,
yeah,
this is not, you need to be here. That's the kind of coach you are. So like just talking to people constantly was really important. So I say the no is like shying away from communication with people because you think,
right,
where's that going to get me?
right,
Or, if I talk to Paul, like that's not going to be as impactful as I talk to like, Mike. And it's
right,
like,
right.
no, everybody, you don't know who they know. And
Right.
you don't know what impact, I still have people on LinkedIn that are like, we had one talk and you're like a sister, like you made such an impact on my life. Like that's like the best feeling ever because that's really what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then for the second question, what was the second question? It was like, what,
The aha moment or something that
oh,
really allowed you to shine, like something that if someone wanted to follow in your footsteps in terms of what you feel you did right, what piece of advice would you give someone looking to transition into a new career?
So much. Into a new career, into a new, even like starting a family, like that was a huge transition too, right? Like, so anybody transitioning, not just a new career, but like any huge step. I would say work on your, like, you talk about mindfulness and like you're just the sort of a calm, because that will only help you, but also like you work on your confidence, like get a coach that you connect with,
Yeah,
even if it's an investment,
yeah,
and have that person talk you through. Like that was a real, I had somebody that was really established and really amazing and really, successful, not just financially, but in every way. And he walked me through everything, and just having that mentor to tell me that's not a good idea. Put your, and like, Annie, you need to make this amount of money. You want to make this, your most important thing is making this impact on people. How many people do you need to see a week that's going to get you to this number? But you can
yeah.
still, if your mission is to impact people, like lay it out. Don't just throw crap against the wall to see what sticks.
Right,
Like
right,
my
right.
aha moment was like, all right, I actually have to look at this and map out what I'm doing. And oh, here's another one, creating my story. And I teach my clients this, like figuring out my story so that I could tell. Like at first, I was jumping on with people and just being like, God. And then, like I figured out my story to where like I could do it in my sleep, right? Like, what's your story? What are your milestones in your life? What makes you special? What happened to you that caused you to do this? At what, like you said, what's your aha moment? I ask my clients that, like, where did you make the, how did this end up making you do this? So figuring out your story is so huge to me. Like not doing that and kind of stumbling along and just like throwing crap at the wall, like I said, is just going to keep you stagnant, you know? So an aha moment was like figuring out my story, not just like, A, B, C, and D, but really what has happened to me and what I've
Yeah.
done and what I've accomplished that put me here in front of you.
And that can help you to understand who you are, like who,
And others.
yeah,
And others, who you are, and understand where other people are. Because my framework that starts with B is like begin where you are. I
yeah,
have to help people figure out where they're starting, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we can't really begin until we find their starting point. So I guess to sum up what I would say the aha moment is to find where I was starting, to find where my begin was, if you will.
Okay.
So how about you? You're making a huge career transition. So tell me about that. This is how the topic really came up. Mine's old. Mine's old.
Yeah,
Yours is
we're starting
imminent.
to have more and more in common as we know each other more and more. So I stepped away after almost 2 decades of being a litigator. I stepped away and decided to pursue what brings me the most joy, and that is teaching others mindfulness meditation and mindfulness tools that can help us to reduce stress, anxiety, to find more joy in life, because I think life now more than ever can be really challenging at moments, but we can find the joy that's here, and we can learn ways to support ourselves to be with what can feel really challenging and to really connect more fully with the present moment. It's been a long time coming, but it's a full circle in the sense that I suffered with severe anxiety for a really long time, and I joke around like someone who's hardwired is to feel anxious, like what's the
Yeah.
best thing to do? Oh, go to law school. Like that'll really that'll really tone down the anxiety. But I took some time. I took some time after graduating from college, 3 years to sort of explore
Yeah.
some of my interest, and I didn't do well. Like you said, you like I think you said like a schedule or
Yeah. Structure. It's just
I
better.
structure. I really was very uncomfortable after college with not knowing exactly what it was I was going to be doing.
Oh yeah. The unknown
And
is so scary.
yeah, talking about patience, like I wanted to be on a track, and I I contemplated law school because I liked being a student, but I think I would have loved being a student.
In any
Yeah, I've
field.
always enjoyed going to school and learning and growing. But I have a few attorneys in the family, and if nothing else, they said, you're gonna get a great education, and it's gonna
Yeah,
teach you to think a certain way. And so for that, I am really grateful. Not grateful for the for the loans, which like you,
I hear you.
but I after 3 years, I think I got frustrated with not knowing, and I thought it would be easier in some way to just be on a track to go.
Yeah, to have an end in sight, right?
Yeah.
Having no end in sight or no light at the end is really hard, and I get that.
Yeah, and I also was naive. I thought that if you go to law school, well, then you're going to find something that's going to be great in some way. But similar to college, like they don't hold your hand and guide you to what's going to be the best fit for you. A
No,
lot of
you
times,
still have to figure it out.
yeah, and a lot of the sort of non-traditional or less traditional roles or opportunities in law, like if you don't want to go work for a big law firm, if you don't want to litigate, like they're not so obvious. So a lot of times what happens for many, or at least in my experience, is you jump at the first job because you just want to get your feet wet, or
Yep.
you get so tired of hearing like, everything looks great on your resume, but you need a little bit more experience. So you're like, okay, let me just get the experience. So
Yeah.
so I I had a clerkship in family law, which is where I thought I enjoyed children. I thought I was going to pursue something in family law, and I realized it wasn't really the right fit for me. But long story short, I wound up at the firm where I was for close to 2 decades. And early on, I realized like it didn't really play into a lot of the qualities of me that, or how should I put this? It wasn't my comfort zone. Like
Hmm.
pursuing being in litigation wasn't my comfort zone, but it was a type of thing where I didn't trust myself because I thought I'm new at this. And once I become
Yeah.
more
And like,
comfortable,
and you kept saying, "Am I gonna? This will get better. This is
it'll
gonna
get
be.
better.
It'll fall into place."
Yeah, when anything's new, I think that it feels like it can feel uncomfortable or scary. And so fast forward to 10 years in and still feeling that way and
Yeah.
trying to figure things out, but you add, like you add a kid, add two kids, and
Yeah.
life in the busyness, sometimes it's almost easier to just stay where you are, because like if you have
Sure.
everything carved out a certain way, like I had flexibility
Yeah.
to go to the holiday school performance, or
Yeah.
I knew I could get home by this time and then do stuff late at night. So you get comfortable in one light, at least I did. And I got spooked. I started to sort of toy with looking in a different direction. I thought about getting a certification to be a school teacher. And there's all these shoulds, like at least again, this goes back to my experience, like what you feel like you should do. Like
Yeah. Of course.
it's prestigious, it's a respectable job to work as an
Yeah.
attorney. So some of the reasons why we do what we do, I think, are they can be a bit more superficial, and some of them are really valid, like again, the flexibility with kids and financial
Yeah. Of
security.
course. Golden handcuffs, as they call them, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm making good money. Like, why should I leave pharma, or why should I? Like it gives me I can work from home sometimes, like all those things. And it's like, but I don't really like it. Like, I'm not myself in this, right?
Yeah, you start to, the more you explore who you are and what's coming up for you, I think you understand what doesn't really serve you well. And but there's a part, at least whereas for me, a part that feels irresponsible when you contribute a certain amount financially to the
Yep.
family, and you feel almost like if you're to shake anything up, like if
Well, yeah, it's stagnant. You become stagnant, right? You're like stuck. That's the people that I coach too. Like, why am I not happy? Like, I'm making this money, I'm doing this thing, but I'm just kind of stuck. And it's like making that change, which you're doing now,
Yeah,
is so key. But listen, I'm grateful. Like, we have the ability to do this now. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's very hard when you're on your own or younger. Like, you have, you know, a wonderful husband. You have an established career. Like, if you needed to go back to it, you could. Like, there's a lot of factors. Your kids are getting a little bit older.
yeah. Well, so just getting back to us, I was talking about how I suffered with anxiety. That became the path to mindfulness. I
Yeah,
enrolled in the foundational 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program, and that sort of gave me a new perspective on being a litigator. Like, I found ways to support myself with being a litigator, and the things that spooked me or the things that I got so pushed and pulled by, I was able to more or less support myself with my role as an attorney. It opened me up to
yeah.
so much possibility. And in fact, I found moments of joy in the work.
That was your aha moment, I feel like.
That was my aha moment in terms of, for a lot of reasons, but in terms of mindfulness just being almost like a superpower. That was the moment where I was like, wow, this has been here all my life, but it just took some help in terms of understanding how to access it. And that became a game changer. But fast forward to the pandemic. The pandemic was a blessing in disguise in terms of the role mindfulness played for me, because it was a time when courts shut down. So I wasn't having to be in court, try cases, things, the speed of our cases slowed down. And I was very fortunate because where I was working, a lot of firms, they had to let people go. And
Mhm.
so I was grateful that I had that security still, but it gave me time to really dive in more deeply to mindfulness practice, like my own practice, but also to train to teach. I had been exploring it, and I had completed the teaching, what's known as the teaching practicum, before the pandemic, and I did it in person before
Mhm.
things went remote because of the pandemic. I had co-taught, I interned and I co-taught the program. But during the pandemic, Jefferson, the Center for Mindfulness at Jefferson, was offering, I think it was daily, if not several times a week, they were offering these drop-in sessions, these 15-minute drop-in sessions, which I committed to like a religion. And
Mhm.
it just, it was so supportive. It allowed me during a time which we're talking about, like it felt like utter chaos, homeschooling. I had three
Yeah.
children by that point. So you have three kids at home, and you're juggling work and the demands of life. And I just saw what a powerful role this played in my life, but the mindfulness, but how much I enjoyed helping others by teaching it. I had gotten a
Yeah.
taste of it before, but when sort of like the, you know, what hit harder, it was just like I can really help people to deal with what can be hugely difficult and in really powerful ways. So so the calling was stronger, like the calling to pursue this passion and to make it be my full-time, I don't want to call it a gig. It's more than a gig, but
Yeah.
rather than to be
It's
straddled
life.
between the two, it was it was sort of that scariness of like, is this the right decision, or am I going to mess anything up? That's sort of
Yeah.
an ongoing, like we say, like, what are your top 10 tunes? That's one of my top 10 tunes. And so I just want to share two pieces, because I think that this may resonate with some of our listeners or viewers. And one is I needed to step away. I've spoken about this on other episodes, but it was a really pivotal moment where I had a case that was on deck for trial, but I had signed up to go on a week retreat with Jon Kabat-Zinn, who
I remember this.
one of my most admire. I mean, I just admire him so much as a teacher and a human being. But I had signed up a year ago and had been planning, like really looking forward to this time to just disconnect and turn
Mhm.
inward and explore like what had been coming up for me and sort of, what do I need? Like, what's holding me back? I felt like boxed, but like, almost like if you're, what the image I get is like this wall, and if you peek over, you can see like rainbows and like
But
sunshine.
it's on the other side of the wall.
It's on the other side, and it's like, okay, how do I get over this steep wall? So I decided, and we've spoken about this in other episodes, but I decided to go on the retreat, which
Well,
was,
you were at a crossroad. I mean, you're like, Annie, I don't know what to do. Like what?
yeah,
And I remember, I think I said, you got to do it. Like,
yeah.
you
And
got to
it was people like you. I had just really incredible people in my corner who knew what I was grappling with, and I went and I sat and I sat and I meditated and I sat and I walked and I sat. And I mean, it was intense being with my own thoughts and my feelings. And at one point I felt like I was just, I gave John a note, you could pass up notes to have a one-on-one. And I said, I need to hear him tell me what I should do. And then he read this poem that I'm going to share. I'm just going to read it. It's a short poem, but he read this poem, and this was my aha moment where I was like, I don't need anyone to tell me what I need to do. Like it's all right here. But it goes back to trust, like to trust ourselves. So this poem is by Derek Walcott. It's called Love After Love, and it goes like this. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you've ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. And I heard those words.
it makes me like really emotional.
Well, the tears in they just I mean, I was in the front row and I was like, oh God, John's gonna
Yeah.
see that. But it was like, yes, like,
Everything is within you. It's you.
yeah. And so I came back and it was kind of like, okay, I know,
Yeah.
like time to roll up the sleeves. Like I know what I have to do, what the next step is, and it felt so right. So I think that in terms of from the mindful, well, I'm going to say something from the mindfulness angle. It's about really showing up for ourselves. Like, what does the heart most desire, and what's keeping us back? Like, what's that wall that's holding us back? And and getting the courage to go over the wall, to explore it. But getting back to coaching, having those key people, having a coach. For me, it's having teachers who really who support
Support is the
you.
big, yeah, support.
Like it's a scary thing, but I will say, being on the other side, it is so empowering. It has such an immense amount of freedom, and when you can almost get back yourself, going back to the poem, like just,
It's in you.
yeah. So it's something, again, it's new, and I'm sure we can have another episode to
But
build
it's
on this.
funny, real quick. So there's one thing that came up for me when you were talking about this was you said trust, but it's also truth, right?
Yeah.
And your truth gets you to freedom. Everything to me. Now, check this out. So this says truth, and that says freedom.
Yeah.
Like everything to me gets you to freedom. Acceptance, finding your truth, finding you, having self-compassion, understanding self-love, being mindful to bring you back to center is all freedom. And that's the ultimate goal, I think, for all of us is to be free, right? You can say, I can do what I want, but that's not freedom. Freedom is being free from your demons, being free from the things holding you back, being
Yeah.
free from the lies, being free from the top 10 tunes, being free from
Yeah.
all the things that keep us down, the limiting beliefs. That's where we're all trying to get to. People say peace, people say joy, but it's freedom to me. So it's interesting that you mentioned both of those things as you were talking.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it. I feel it. So yeah, that's what's resonating with me in this moment.
Yes.
And hopefully what we've shared lands for someone. So this has been fun. I feel like I could keep talking about this. I
Me
had
too.
something I wanted to maybe another time, but there's a book I'm reading about the places that scare you by Pema Chodron, who is an American born Tibetan Buddhist. But this is another powerful, really, really great book for those of you who are exploring transition and embarking upon the places, the things that scare or spook you in
Well,
some.
maybe we have another episode on that, right? I love chatting with you, and maybe the next episode we kind of talk about what scares us
Yeah.
and like I just said, what holds us back from this freedom that we're all really searching for.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the next one that we talk about where it's just you and me.
Okay.
Also, this is quite apropos. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for the
Aw.
special people in my life and the support that I've had um, from family and friends and mentors. Just support of telling me my strengths, lean into them, and it really got me to this place of freedom where I do feel, like I left the shackles behind in ways. And we're all searching for that all the time, right? I'm always working towards evolving, but really sort of found this place of freedom, and I feel like that's where you're headed
Yeah.
because you're doing it
Yeah.
and finally going towards what you need to do and who you are. Not to say that time was wasted because you've done some beautiful things, but this is a time for gratitude, Thanksgiving, and so I just wanted to mention that. Just time to be grateful. We are free, all of us. We just have to find it.
Yeah. Ah, that's beautiful. Well, yeah, thank you. I'm grateful for
Thank
you.
you.
I'm grateful for our audience, our followers, and I'm wishing everybody a Thanksgiving that is full of joy,
Mhm. And
health,
love.
and hopefully everyone is surrounded or close by their loved ones. So, thank you, Annie. Thanks to all our
It
listeners
was
or
great to see you.
watchers.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.